Hi, Usman. How are you?
Very well, Lauren. Good to see you again.
Good to see you too. You and I have had a series of really interesting conversations, and you've been a very helpful expert in helping me better understand AI and how it can be applied, and what are some of the key considerations that our clients should be thinking through as they are wading into this brave new AI enabled world. Usman is a AI governance expert coming to us from Toronto today. He's an independent consultant who I have had the pleasure of knowing now for a couple of years through a wonderful connection of mine. And I asked if he could join us today to help all of us independent consultants better understand AI governance, its importance, when it factors into a client's consideration set, and when it factors into the client's dev process. AI, like pricing, in my opinion, is one of the things that every consultant needs to understand, regardless of their functional area or specialty within an organization. It is something that will and is impacting all of us, not just as people in our own businesses, but it is a major factor in the implication, or it has an implication on the decisions we recommend and help our clients make. So I feel very strongly that it's our responsibility to self learn what this means and at least be a voice at the table, regardless if you are marketing, HR, finance, operations, strategy like me, to say, wait a second, guys, this is when we pause. That's all we have to be able to say, but we need to know when we need to raise our hand and say pause. And so that's why I invited Usman to join us today. So let's start with the basics. And I will again ask, talk to me like I'm a second grader.
hmm
Okay. I think we got to understand, like, some of us are not, myself included, not as technical as others. So we're going to start with the basic question. What is AI governance?
I'll start with a shout out to our common friend, Josna. Hope you're
Yes.
well. Wonderful, wonderful human being. And that being said, uh, so Lauren, the way I look at governance is as follows. Before we started recording, I was saying, for me, governance is really the question is what can we do to make sure that within the context of what we are trying to do on a day-to-day basis as a business, nobody can come and poke a finger in and say you were irresponsible with the way you used my data to do some things or the way your AI models are behaving. And that right off the bat, from the way I've experienced it, it leads to a reputational risk. And therefore, anything we can do to minimize reputational risk and make sure that we are not putting ourselves in harm's way, for me, is governance. Right now, AI governance, however, is this very unique beast which is truly evolving in real time as we watch its progress with the chat GPTs of the world and the Gen AI tools that are coming out. So AI governance essentially means, if in a nutshell, if I was talking like a five to fifth grader, would be everything, every product, every service, every conversation where we are using AI as either a final outcome or as a supporting act, we make sure that the the risk profile or the risk of the potential for that use of that particular AI module or that AI product does not become a problem where somebody can come and tell us that we were irresponsible with the way we were using AI. For in a nutshell, that's what it. How can we make sure that we are not making those mistakes now? Because of the fact that AI governance, like AI, I think mentioned, is an evolving phenomenon. The AI governance lens or the AI governance perspectives also keep modifying and keep getting changed. And it's that continuous journey around making sure that our governance hats keep on evolve, our governance mindsets keep on evolving as AI technology evolves, is what the general areas of AI governance tries to install and educate people on.
Okay.
So that's what it
Uh,
is. Yeah.
so the general rule is like our old school email rule. If you don't want this on the cover of the Wall Street Journal, don't put it in an email,
Exactly. If you
right?
don't want people to know where you live, don't put it on Facebook.
Don't put it on Facebook. It's funny. Like it's like a generational thing for us. It's like that started with email. I'm sure for the generation before us, it started with like a memo, but then it became don't put it in text. And
Correct.
now we do need to apply it to, even though, and for me, it's kind of less obvious because an email it's there, it's in print, you see it, same for text, but AI, it's not. You're informing the data sets and the models behind everything
Yes.
that actually is generated.
Correct.
So even though what the work that we do or the work that the teams do on a product may not be front and center, it is still like that is the root and the consideration where you have to make sure that the usage is responsible.
And this is such a good point you bring up, Lauren. And one of the things that I find fascinating, and this is that open discussion, AI will take over our world, AI will take over our jobs. I don't agree with that still. I mean, there are some incredibly intelligent people in the world who are expounding this. I still have a hard time believing that because of what you just said. AI at the end is a representation of our insights, our psyche, our instincts. If our instincts stop evolving, AI will stop evolving, I feel, right? So, and therefore, but we don't make that connection between the thoughts we have and how they make us make their way to the nerve endings we have into our fingers, where we put the wrong information into our data, and that gets sucked into AI models, and then we scratch our heads thinking, like, whoa, when did that happen? We didn't see that coming. But we've got to understand and realize that if you think it and if you digitize it in any way, it's it is consumable and it is kosher for AI to absorb.
Yeah.
So we don't see that relationship, but it's there.
Okay, so what happens when AI goes wrong?
Wow, the number of situations where AI has gone wrong, it's a long laundry list. Where do I start?
Start with the idea of going back to data governance, or not data governance, but AI governance itself. If that's fundamentally incorrect or not considered, ignored even, right? Like more of a passive mistake, what can happen?
Number of things. So there are internal side of bad effects, and there are of course the client facing back effects. Now, first and foremost, I think one of the we are living in a world where trust has become the cornerstone of any relationship, professional relationships specifically. So if for me, I've seen people lose trust in the organizations or the products they're dealing with. And if you lose trust once, I mean, the old saying, hard to build, easy to lose. Trust is one of those things. So that for me is one of the biggest outcomes that I have seen negatively affect the world. Living in Ontario, this is an example of how trust actually broke between the care providers in healthcare and the care consumers in healthcare. And there was a data governance breach, but that led to information that was very specific to Lauren go to somebody else's home. And then Lauren found out, and Lauren has every right to be upset, right? And that led to the privacy commissioner getting involved and a lot of people getting their hands slapped for the right reasons. Now, that one little mistake that was made, which made so many people get involved, led to such a reputational damage to the Ministry of Health in Ontario. Imagine that happening at scale, because that's what AI does. It takes the good and the bad and it scales it up to the point where it is literally untenable. Okay, so a reputational risk, certainly one of those things. But in addition, the if people, but that's the external facing. Internally, if we are using AI to create decisions, and if we have biases already just embedded into the data that is going to be used for making those decisions, we can already see how the right ideas might not get to see the light of day, because the people who control the data sets are the people who control the intent in the data behind it in the data sets. So you can already imagine that we are sort of just we put ourselves in an echo chamber, and guess what supports the echo chamber? The AI models we wrote. And because it's technology, we will not question technology. And we have this, right? For me, initially, when I started looking at AI models and chat GPTs and the responses would come back, I would implicitly take them to be true because, hey, someone at Google made this. Those guys are very clever. I'm not as clever as them. They're right.
Yeah.
And you can see how that just, steamrolls into a really, really bad situation.
Yeah. I mean, and if you think about that, like you're a person with a ton of experience, rational thought, great education. Like imagine what happens with a 17-year-old or
Oh,
with
exactly.
even us as 17-year-olds, right? Like just, or even 25 or earlier in your career without that lived experience, or someone who may have any kind of brain that absorbs that. There is this idea of trust. I think that's important. And I think the other thing you said I would want to build on is the output of the models is already impacting decision making.
That's right.
And therefore, if you play it back, if the output is flawed or irresponsibly considering the wrong areas, it has an amplified effect on decision after decision after decision after
Correct.
decision.
Yes. And that's exactly right. In fact, one of the things that I used to, and I hoped that I was the one who came up with this term, but apparently I did not. I used to work in the principle of what I used to call optimation. So it was a combination of optimize and then automate. And my rationale behind this was as follows: if you automate a really or even a slightly bad decision, you are automating bad decisions at scale. The exponential out of control that it will get exponentially out of control. And then most when we hear people say, hey, we're in firefighting mode most of the time, it's because we've made these incorrect decisions or cut corners in the past. It was not automated, so maybe we was still in scope, we could still deal with it. But imagine a bad decision automated through an AI model. And if we don't have responsible AI perspectives on, we don't pick up on the fact that it's a bad decision, and we just keep expounding on it again and
Yeah, I mean,
again
and you
and
don't
again,
know.
and we
I
don't
mean,
even know exactly.
you don't know. I mean, in today's world, you look at KPIs, or you could look at something and say, okay, or here's the information we had and considered, and it's more complete. At least it's the transparency of the inputs
Correct.
are more transparent than perhaps it will be in the future. And so, therefore, your ability to pinpoint those and course correct, you have greater control over that when you can see the inputs. But when you can't see them, like the ability to react in a way that's really going to overcome the problem is likely going to be lessened.
Uh, the about It's about 15 years back we started to deal with this. I used to do a lot of DevOps work, automation
Mhm.
for software delivery, and we had this idea of shift left, which said those who are responsible for making sure that the whatever they're passing out to the next person in line, they have to be the ones to make sure it is absolutely pristine and clean. That's the shift left approach. Like I said initially, because we were not automating human like intelligence, static processes. Even if we automated a static process which was bad, we could go back and fix it and it would just scale up and fix the problem overall. But now, with the constant moving targets, the goalposts are just keep moving all the way, they keep adjusting themselves. Not making sure that the shift left, avoiding shift left, especially for AI related things, is going to result in the kinds of problems that will not be fixed easily by making modifications in the route. That will not happen because the train has left the station.
Yeah.
Decisions that are out of sync or context have been used to create further decisions. And you're just having this compounding effect of bad ideas upon bad ideas upon bad ideas. And because we don't have AI governance in place, we don't know we're making bad decisions.
Yeah.
Hey, the
I mean,
models are right.
I look at this. I like to look at things at all angles. I look at this in two ways. One is it's really easy, I think, for us to get hyperbolic about the negative outcomes, but let's look at what is likely a reality. 1% is wrong in the shift left. 1% is wrong. 1% is wrong. 1% is wrong. 1% compounds and compounds and compounds until 1% becomes a really big problem. I mean, we all studied compound growth, right?
Oh,
Like
yes,
this is
ma'am.
a grain of sugar becomes a mountain pretty quickly. The other metaphor this is my favorite metaphor is the relay race, the 4x4. The handing off of the baton is where relay races are run. And why? Because that is where there is the greatest opportunity to mess up the speed, the acceleration, right? And the person running with the baton has to, one, slow down, two, know exactly where the other hand of the other person will be. And then three, that other person has to catch, grip, and then accelerate. And that small piece of the handoff has a big additive effect when you take it four times, right? Three times, I
Yeah,
guess. You take that handoff three times. And that is how the races, I mean, these races can be run in won or lost in milliseconds. Like that comes down to the efficiency and smoothness and accuracy of that handoff. This is no
absolutely.
different.
Not at all. In fact, I love the way you brought up the relay races. I've always used the Formula One as my example for that.
Yeah, the pit.
Yeah, I mean, imagine if one screw was loose. You can imagine what's going to start happening. That wheel gets looser. It starts to have more friction. It burns off quicker. The
Yeah.
driver is in danger of actually getting hurt.
Yeah.
But
I
it was
mean,
just that one was right.
so most hyperbolic is like they forget a wheel. Then you've got to, one screw is loose. But imagine if the tire angle is just off by 3 degrees
I, I'm sure it's
over the next, 40 laps. By the
yeah.
way, do you have a team
I'm
or a
no,
driver?
I don't have a Formula One. My son is very big in Formula One. He gives me all these. He keeps talking about these names that are so European sounding. I don't even remember them
You don't
halfway
watch it. Oh,
through.
we watch it every weekend.
Oh, you
Just
do?
personal side note. Yeah, we are huge F1 fans, but we've never been. I mean, my husband has been obviously, but I've never been to the race that's here. It's like literally right there. I could like see the tower in the distance. But I can't deal with the sun and the noise and stuff. So
The noise is
yeah,
what really keeps. So yeah, no, I'm not a Formula One fan per se, but I really like that Formula One analogy when I'm talking to people and discussing with them the criticality of AI governance from the get go, um, as opposed to thinking about it after the proverbial train has left the station.
yeah. All right, so I won't go then into a tangent on the McLaren equity sale. So, all
Okay,
right,
sorry.
so back to my questions here. Um, All right, we've painted a great picture of a hurricane coming towards the Gulf Coast. How can two questions. This is two questions if we could take this from two angles. One is how can independent consultants like us help overcome this? And the other question is how can our clients think about this? Like I think we should think about it a little bit different because I have an opinion, but let me hear you. Like how can people overcome this problem?
One of the most critical things that I talk about when I'm talking about AI governance is literacy. We don't know what we don't know. And the technology world is very good at creating jargon to keep those non-techs feeling like they don't that the tech guys are just these super intelligent human beings who just know what's happening. It is not true. It is not true.
No. No.
Not at all. I'm a software developer by training. I had this arrogance about if I can throw this term out there, people will keep quiet. It was arrogance on my part, and I feel embarrassed to accept it, but I made those mistakes. So, first and foremost, let us get this jargon simplified to the point where we can talk about AI governance in normal, common human parlance.
Yes.
Data privacy. I don't want my private information becoming part of a model. End of story. Simple AI governance. So having that understanding, making people understand that is very, very important. Now, how I do that. So what I do is I'm in an advisory role with an organization. When my focus primarily comes into play when I start looking at technical implementation. That's where I have my most work done currently. I mean, but outside of that, when I'm working with my advisory groups, the first thing is I'm just asking them, do you even understand what these words mean? Like AI, what do you know about model bias? What do you mean about responsible AI use? Do you know understand this? And the first things are, no, we don't. Okay, great. Let's talk about that. And so educating comes first. Now, fortunately, there are bodies in existence like the NIST framework. EU has their own framework, and other organizations are coming up with which try to make it easy for consultants to pick up an existing area or existing framework with all the details and the explanations, and then try to whittle it down to the client's need, because those frameworks are very expansive and they try to cover a lot of space. And the way I found it, these consultants can be most useful is based on the client needs, start to identify the things that are most relevant in those frameworks and then build up on them.
Give me an
Eventually, you
example.
come
Like,
to
what's a framework? Like, give me an example of a
so
framework.
NIST. NIST is this organization. Some Institute of Science and Technology. I keep forgetting the full acronym, the name of the acronym, but they're a global body, and they're composed of experts and SMEs in this AI world and the data world. And based on their experiences, they come up with what I like to call "Thou shalt do the following if you don't want to get stuck with AI governance." The checklist of things that one must go through to make sure that AI governance is not a problem or contentious issue. That's a framework. So
Okay.
NIST
So
is
think
one.
about it this way. Here's some guidelines. We've
Exactly.
thought about it for you. Now,
They've done that for us, exactly.
okay.
And as consultants, all of the principles that NIST talks about, for example, might not be applicable for our clients. So, that's where we come in, and based on our experience, say, let's chop off or just scrape off these first few four principles, these four ideas for right now, because they make the most sense for your needs.
Okay.
Focus on that, and then add the next four later on, and the next four later on, and eventually you can say, yeah, we have a NIST compliant AI governance
That's
approach.
a great niche, by the way. It's like ESG. And this is better than ESG now, especially in the US, where I feel like ESG is challenged to say the least.
I have so much to talk about ESG, Lauren. My wife is she is an ESG. I'm sorry, I interrupted you because you said
No,
ESG. It triggered me. It literally did.
yeah, but I mean, what we've been doing with this work of interviewing folks over the last couple months is I'm trying to share some of these niches that consultants are working in that I feel like are really, if you have the right expertise, they're really easy to get a toehold and make a career out of it, because
Correct.
they are areas where you need some level of specialized knowledge, but like it's very applicable to people and to clients. It's a real gap, and it's an area where you can come in and come out. And it's just like the hardest part of this kind of job is prospecting and getting new clients. And I think having a great niche makes it easier. So I think this is a really interesting niche. And good for you for doing it. By the way, how did you get into this?
Screaming and shouting, I'll say, because governance means that you have to be cautious. And like I said, the arrogant software engineer in me said, I don't want to be governed by anybody. I'm gonna do my own thing. But then you keep getting your hand slapped, but when things go out. So I got into this because honestly, I was trying to save my own backside. I didn't want to get in trouble.
Mm-hmm.
But as time has gone on, and at that when I first got into the governance world, I didn't have children. My kids were very young; they weren't that old. But the last couple of years, my son is now a teenager. My daughter is 8 years old, who's going on 38 actually. But I can suddenly understand why it is important to have AI governance in place. Not for me, I can see how it affects the younger generation. So I started off to cover my own risk, but as time has gone on, I've realized that it is actually an important part of overall societal safety and safeguards, and therefore it's become more important for me, and therefore that's why I focus so much time on AI governance now.
Did you have to go and relearn it, or did you learn it on the job?
um, I didn't have to go lead on. My baptism was by fire with AI
Mm-hmm.
governance. So I learned on the fly. I kept making mistakes. And initially, I didn't really want to follow any frameworks. Again, the same thing. I'm a software developer. I know what's right and wrong. But eventually, I mean, as time went on, I realized, hey, come on, man, just pick up a framework, go through it. And like I said, and this is the same thing I tell to all my clients, is pick up the parts that are most relevant right now. Just cover your bases. Minimal coverage for your business and your reputation. And but as more and more complex needs come up, I realize that you know I need to be deeper into these frameworks so that I can be value add right away, as opposed to stumbling to it. And that's how I got into the
Do
depths
you,
of this work.
do you know if these, I'll call them governing bodies, but like these boards are like NIST you mentioned, do they have training programs, or like how are they reaching out to people like us?
So this great question. So they do have training programs, and you can buy them. You can have certifications done on
Like
them.
get a certification. Yeah.
Yes, but it's mostly a volunteer group, so to speak. Really, people. It's just like the IEEE, right? Being a part of IEEE puts you in the upper echelon of and the engineering world as a whole. You've got access to good engineers, your peers, and this is exactly like that. So they have this back and forth collaborative approach, and they get SMEs from different functional areas, different industries, and they all bring their expertise to the table, and then they try to find patterns that are as globally applicable as is possible, and that becomes a framework.
Okay. All right. So back to steering us back to AI governance. What is your methodology? You go into a client and you're thinking through, like, is there a method that you use when you're looking at what they're trying to accomplish and kind of where they are today?
Great question. The first thing that I ask of any client when I start working with them, at least in the advisory role that I have, is give me your business strategy. Just talk to me about that, basically. And within the business strategy, invariably, business strategies are one of the things that I read a lot in every business strategy. Data is my asset. So I'm
Right.
looking for that kind of verbiage there. So I will pick that up and say, when you say data is your asset, let's talk about what do you mean by data as your asset. And then we start getting into the weeds of things. And they say, well, data is an asset because it has to make a product that wows my clients, gives them the best value, and customers. Aha, let's stop right there. So you want to make your data give the best value to your client through your AI products? How do you define your client value? Well, you want them to feel safe, secure, trust us, blah blah blah. So once they are the ones who start giving me all the adjectives they want their clients to feel about them. And once they start doing that, invariably, Lauren, 9 out of 10 times I come to a point where they don't want their clients to mistrust them. And once that comes up, I say, okay, you let me down this path. Actually, I let you down this path, but you come to this point. Here is where I think you want trustworthiness to be your top selling point. This is how you would make your AI products more trustworthy. This is how you would make a brand more trustworthy.
And how
And
do they do that?
well, first and foremost is now, because of the fact that AI governance is still evolving, most of the statements that we see with AI governance frameworks are very motherhood statements. We will use our data in a fair way. Everybody likes apple pie. I love apple pie and ice cream, but what does
Well,
that
and we
mean?
all have definitions, different
Exactly.
definitions of
Yes.
what
So
fair might mean.
that's where the literacy bit comes in. Fine. When you say you want to trustworthy, what do you mean by trustworthy? Now, depending on the industry, trustworthiness might have different dimensions to it, right? I'll
Okay.
take the healthcare example. Well, I want my people to be my Ontarians, the average Ontarian, to be sure that their data is very, very safe and secure. It does not leave our systems. So, technically speaking, then that's where I step in with my technical implementations. But the technical implementations are, in a sense, their way of auditing their own behaviors and then getting a check mark that says we are following this responsible AI framework. And how do we know we've done this? Because our systems don't do. Our systems are, I'm throwing a technical term here, are based on roles-based access control. We have very private networks. We don't put your data in the public cloud. All these are the tactics that we can use to say we are trying to be responsible and we are trying to keep your data secure.
Do you
Uh,
build that with them, that list?
so the frameworks give us the general outlines,
Okay.
and then, like I said, I start picking up a one adjective. So, for example, one of the most difficult things in my experience that companies have difficulty with too is being explainable. That's an
Mhm.
AI governance principle. You should be able to explain the intent and the mechanism behind your models. Companies don't feel comfortable with that because some models are IP. They don't want to give that information away. So I will step in, and my thing is, okay, what we do is we create a report on how thoroughly we tested this, how many use cases we tested this against, and how many of those use cases ended in adverse outcomes versus expected outcomes. That is your level. That is what you go back and tell your clients. That on the whole, 85% of the time, we are very good with the way your data is used. The 15% where it is not, um, it is under these circumstances, and we have a remedy for it. But if you don't like it, if you feel that your data falls in that kind of category, please let us know through the consent or the informed consent paradigm, and we'll remove whatever we have to remove so that you feel comfortable about your data.
And when you go in, are you building this as like the company these approaches or this list of things that must be done? Is it like the company standard for how
Correct.
we do this across everything?
Yes,
Okay.
because governance needs to be, so again, governance, AI governance is AI governance for all kinds of AIs. Uh, AI governance has suddenly come to the fore with Gen AI, but AI governance applies to pre-Gen AI times as well.
Okay. So there's in the process, there is the human definition of what the strategy and objectives are, and then the translation of what that would look like
Correct.
as delivered via AI,
Correct.
right? And
So
systems.
yes, so the philosophy is the philosophy. The tactical implementation is where I come into play. We've
Okay.
got these ideas. Let me help you implement this so you can stand with a lot of confidence and say the philosophy that we want to follow meets the product and the systems that we support and operate.
And the definition of like a durable library of or guidelines or playbook of the things that they know, have decided, and then can scale across the organization.
Absolutely. I'll give you an example. I'm working with a fintech right now. I'm writing the most of the platform code for them, and they're based on complete AI, and their focus is know your customer, know your clients, and then using that information to decide how to deal with their profiles and portfolios. Um, they when we started working out with them, they had no concept of AI governance. Period. There was no idea
Mm.
about that. So with the AI governance approach, I started with their basic data exploration. That is the first thing that any data science modeler will do. Go through your data and just make sure that you don't have an overrepresentation of one demographic versus the other. That's right away a fairness and bias reduction step that you can put into place. Do that. Once you've done that, then we create the models. Then once we've created the models, we feed it with data that is not representative of what the model was based on to see how the model reacts. And invariably, we'll see the model comes with the most crazy insights. Like, you look, my God. So you're saying that in order to make $1 million next year, I have to open a dog kennel? That's an insight that came through, honestly, one of the, because the data set had some
And
prop.
I'm assuming this was not like chewy.com.
No, 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 no,
Like,
no,
okay,
no,
this was not a dog business. Okay.
no, no. This is this payment processor who works with a lot of people, veterinarians and dog shelters and whatnot. So that came through as one of the things. And so we run them through adverse tests, positive tests, and based on those, it starts to make clear for us if the model is really capturing the intent behind what we are trying to do. And that gives us the opportunity to keep going back to the data, clean it a little bit more, make the new model, get more insight. And it's an evaluation cycle. And till the executives and the powers that be don't, in this particular case, did not feel comfortable, those models did not hit their production systems. They've hit the production systems now. They're working pretty good. Nobody's complained so far. So I think I might have been useful there.
Yeah. Okay. So this make that was in my opinion, very clear. What you just described to me sounds a lot like the scientific method.
Absolutely.
Hypothesis, gather the data, make sure you have your controls and variables, design a clean experiment, experiment, find findings, iterate and re-experiment, iterate and re-experiment until you get to the kind of the insight and outcome conclusions that you wanted to get to.
Lauren, I think 90% of the work we do with real work, good work with good outcomes is based on the scientific method,
Mhm.
at least for me. I am a very binary person from that point of view. Things work in one and zeros for me. And therefore, it was very hard for me to understand governance and its needs because governance doesn't work on one and zeros. It works on
Yeah.
a range, feelings, emotions. It's hard. I mean, software engineer, I think I'm built that way. It's very hard for me to pick up on those things. And therefore, in hindsight, I think I was afraid of going down the governance path because I just had this thing. I mean, I'm not. I don't get these things. I don't understand this part of the world we live in. But I had no option but to do so if I wanted to make myself as free from risk as possible.
Yeah. Okay. So this brings up this idea of this is a human reliant, nebulous, sometimes emotional topic. Ultimately, anytime you implement anything in an organization, your success comes down to behavior and culture, which we cannot put into ones and zeros.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not.
So, what are you seeing at the organization or even the individual level? How, these models and libraries and guidelines are only as good as the company's ability to scale them and adhere to them and drive accountability for them. What are you seeing kind of leading edge that companies are doing to do this at scale within their workforce?
Um, when I start talking to, so it's in my advisory role with the firm I'm working with right now, um, when we start talking about AI governance, and we do this deep dive, and I start asking them questions, and they start leading me down this path where I'm leading them. I know why I want them to go there. Invariably, we come to the point we don't have data governance. Sorry. So the foundation of what makes the ingredients for AI models is missing. Data governance at the core. So more often than not, we start talking about AI governance, but it delves down into we don't even have basic data governance. So let's focus on that first and then build it up to the point where we feel comfortable about AI governance. Now, it doesn't happen all the time, but I think it's a 50-50 split. Some clients I work with will then stop going down the AI path and say, fix the root causes first, the root issues first, before we try to build up on those, which I find a much better approach because then you're not fighting on multiple fronts. But some companies will then, and they will say, okay, fine, we'll focus on data governance, but we also want to focus on AI governance. And then the hope is that eventually at some moment, both these capabilities are developed enough that the merging, when we have to merge them, the obstacles are a lot less than what we would have expected. Okay. For me, I think starting at the root is much more important. You save yourself a lot of headache and missed opportunities. But I mean, if companies want to do the top-down approach, work on both things at the same time, then as a consultant, my job is to then find the areas where I can wedge these different point of views together into one holistic governance approach that covers data and that covers your AI.
That's great. All right. So I want to just a couple of questions about the niche itself and your work before we conclude. What types of clients are you serving? So you mentioned fintech. Like, for whom is this now become a burning problem where they're looking for help?
This has become a burning problem for any company that can Google and read about the great things that AI is going to do for them. The promise of the this is the latest version of the California gold rush, and AI is not a panacea. It is not for everyone, and unfortunately, everybody, irrespective of what their scope of their work is, feel that AI is important for them. My contention is as follows: AI is a means to an end. We have gone through these kinds of heights in the past. Automation was one of those. AI is just a new flavor of automation with the added caveat that, like human beings, it can go wrong. And when it goes wrong, what can we do to fix that problem? Right? So AI is not for everyone, first and foremost. That's my point of view. It is only good in places where you have a good data governance in place, when you need to automate things at scale, when you need to make human decision making like activities, when you need them at scale, think about AI. Otherwise, existing tools, existing technologies like even RPA is good enough for you to automate things. It is good enough for you to get the most bang for your buck. And again, that's one of the things that I do talk with clients, and I realized you don't need AI. You're talking about RPA right now, and then they'll go back, "Oh no, yeah, actually that's right. You don't need AI." And in certain cases, I've seen, at least in one case, I've seen the client's face just like, "Oh, thank God, I don't need AI."
Wait, what is RPA?
RPA is robotic process automation. So RPA is So I'll give you an example. You have invoicing. Sorry.
Yeah. I was going to say, and what is that?
Yes, you have invoices that you have to. I worked in a healthcare example. I'll give you the example of a healthcare company. We used to get a lot of invoices from different labs, and we had just one person. That poor person, that poor lady. I mean, she was the hardest worker I've met. She would go through each invoice step by step and input into an Excel sheet that would go into an accounting system that would then print out the monies and invoices that had to go through and bank transfers. An RPA tool is something which will, for a standardized process. For example, she bought an RPA tool that would just take all of these invoices one by one. It would do a screen capture, and you set up the RPA tool to say, on this invoice, if you look at the top right corner, it's going to give you the amount. The top left will give you the address. The bottom right gives you something else. The bottom left gives you something else, and the RPA blindly goes in. It has no intelligence. It blindly goes in, picks up those four areas from the image, and extract whatever values and quantities are mentioned there and add it to a database. So instead of this friend of mine, instead of having to slough through hundreds of invoices every month, she would put them into the RPA tool and we'd go and grab coffee. And by the time she came back, 80% of the work was done. So that's RPA. There's no intelligence needed there. There's just directions. It doesn't think. It's a black box. It does not care. It will do what you want it to do. That's one kind of automation. AI is a different kind of automation, but an automation with a little bit of a oomph to it, like a little pizzazz. It can think on its own. And if it can think on its own, it can go in a direction that you don't want it to go. There is a value to that, but do you really, really need that? That's always one of the things that always I feel comes out as a the easy way out of the conundrum that people are forcing on themselves because we have so much hype around AI. AI is
Yeah.
great, but I think we're going through another hype cycle. And 6, 7, 8 months, AI will become par for for the course. It will become table stakes and no longer be that. Oh my God, AI! This is going to change my life. You know the next one that's coming up? VR and AR. You mark my words today. VR and AR is going to be
I
the next
believe
hype
you.
cycle.
No, I believe you. It's interesting. Just one note on the RPA. I think because every like normal people, me, are hearing about AI and getting on the hype train. We're like, oh, well, we could do this with AI. I didn't. I mean, like RPA is not. I know exactly what you're talking about. It's not sexy at all.
Oh, not at all.
I don't know the I mean, until you just told me what the difference was, I wouldn't be able to distinguish the difference. I thought the former was AI, but we actually are going through this with a client right now where we have like a defined process and same scenario, and where we landed was like we really just need Power BI
Apps.
to talk to Power
Oh,
Apps and
that's
send
it.
an email. Like,
Exactly.
and if we
Exactly.
did that, we could save half of a person's job.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. And so uh, the hype has to, I think we just, I have a feeling we're coming to the point where we're getting tired of the AI hype. It's like, yeah, been
Well,
there,
you
done
are
that.
because you live it, but I think
Uh,
other people are like, party,
they're,
party. It's
it's, they're going through the honeymoon phase.
yeah.
They'll grow out of it soon. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah. Well, Usman Lakhani, you were great. Thank you so much for
Thank you,
joining
Shari.
us. Where can folks find you besides Toronto online?
Well, I am not a big traveler. So I'm typically mostly in Toronto. The furthest I've gone in the last year is to St. Kitts and Nevis, and
Well,
I
that's far.
missed. It was warm. I've become used to the cold. The
Yeah.
cold makes me feel home more than the warmth. So I live in Toronto, but in order to get me, I'm on LinkedIn. I work for an advisory company called Infotech Research Group, where I do the advisory work. But because I'm a software engineer, I love fingers on keyboard. I like that aspect of producing things, systems as well. So for that bit, I do like I have some projects that I'm working on the side. So in order to get to me, I have a small implementation organization business setup. It's called Consilience. It's on LinkedIn, and if somebody wants to get a hold of me and talk to me about RPA projects or AI systems engineering, one of the things that's, by the way, just a plug-in is that's going to happen is for sure is going to happen is this world of agentic AI and
Mm-hmm.
agentic AI mesh, which is such a it's a $20 word for a 5 cent concept. A $20 word for a 5 cent concept, which is one piece of code. We'll do something and tell the other piece of code, "I'm done. Over to you."
Shift left.
Agent, sure, sure. It's literally like one of those things, and so that's going to be something that's coming up. And again, the technical implementation of those kinds of things is where I focus most, and consilience is how I keep myself engaged with the fingers on keyboard implementation of technologies.
Well, fantastic. Well, thanks for joining us. Have a great weekend.